I'm Natasha Parilla, Director of Communications and Early Learning Initiatives at AppleTree Institute for Education. And we are here with our Early Ed Insights podcast. And I want to welcome our wonderful guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Sharif El-Mekki. I am the founder and CEO at the Center for Black Educator Development. It is a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Sharif. I remember I met you at the National Charter Collaborative in the elevator.
In the elevator.
Yeah, I hope I didn't scare you because I know I was shouting because that was one of the things I wanted to do was I had to meet Sharif El-Mekki. The famous podcast you have with Chris Stewart and your other folks because I interviewed Chris a few
Okay,
weeks back.
nice,
So
nice. He's a great interviewee, so yeah.
he is. He was great. Okay, so I'm gonna step into these questions. I want to ask you. So when you
Mhm.
wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you think about, and how does it set the tone for your day?
That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. As a Muslim, as a spiritual person, first thing I wake up is really thinking about the creator, and my relationship with God and being prayerful, being, spiritual. I think that's the first starter. But connected to that is his creation, and whether it's my family or the work that we do, like, how am I a servant leader, and what does my day look like? How am I showing up? What did I learn yesterday and yesteryear? So those are all the things that are swimming, in addition to trying to get my daughters off to school, right? So but when I get up, it's pretty still and quiet, and so that gives me, just time to reflect,
Yes.
about me and my space, as well as my relationship with creator. I'm an early riser, so that's also helpful too. So it
Oh,
gives
okay.
me, some, just some time and space,
Yeah.
where I don't feel so harried and just
Hmm.
nuts. So
That sounds good. Next, I'm going to ask you about can you share the importance of Black male educators in the early childhood education space? What's been the impact on students and communities?
this is it's absolutely critical to have, representation, to have, Black men within schools, and we know, Black men, despite the negative portrayals and false narratives about Black men, about their unwillingness or disinterest in education, they are very highly interested. It's the kind of same tropes that say, oh, Black fathers aren't involved, where, studies show that Black fathers are more involved in the other men demographic groups in the raising, upbringing, nurturing of their children. Very similarly, Black men, particularly Black men with college degrees, a higher percentage of them go into education than any other, profession or career, right? And then when you couple that with Black men adjacent to classrooms and schools, coaches, mentors,
Mm.
support systems, they play a significant role in the ecosystem. And the importance of children, Black boys in particular, but not only Black boys, Black children and children who do not identify as Black. This is very important, for them to see representation, for them to really see and experience a counter narrative, that's often, just that our communities and others parts of segments of society are pummeled with. That,
Mhm.
oh, Black men and defining us, but, big part of self-determination is defining ourselves, naming ourselves, and speaking for ourselves. And so Black men's impact, not just on the children, I should add, but on the ecosystem, on the women who are
Mhm.
in the profession, on the families of other children. So outsized impact, even though it's a tiny fraction comparatively. But again, as far as Black men with college degrees, more of them go into education than any other profession.
And we need it too. I remember when I was a teacher at a charter school in New Jersey,
Mhm.
and it was this little girl, and I was a co-teacher, and we had like a two-teacher model. And she was my partner was the primary teacher, and I was the co-teacher. And this little girl came in. It was like the first one of the first days of school, and she was like, "I have two Black teachers, two." to
He was
her.
incredulous, right? Like,
Yes.
whoa.
She was, and it amazed
Yeah.
me too, because
Hmm.
I wasn't even conscious of that
Right.
until she said it. What are the biggest challenges in recruiting, and how is the Center for Black Educators addressing that?
I hear people, districts around the country, speaking more about diversifying their educator workforce. I know when we launched the Center for Black Educator Development 5 years ago, there were so many districts reaching out to us in every inbox, social media inboxes, email inboxes, saying, "Oh, we're recruiting. We need a black teacher. Well, we have a vacancy. We need a black teacher." And, the two questions we would ask is like, one, how are you going to retain them? What's your retention plan?
Yep.
Many of them did not have one. And two, we would let them know we don't have, black teachers in our backpacks. What we have is a model to grow your own, and invite your current high school students in your schools and districts to return to you and lead classrooms of their own. But one of the things, we did a report with Teach Plus a couple years ago, really involved in engaging high school students who are already interested in teaching. They were open to the idea of leading classrooms of their own. And some of what they shared was their own experiences as students
Mm.
was a barrier. Even, and these aren't students who haven't thought, these are students who are actually interested in becoming teachers. They were taking maybe a teacher course, with Ed Rising and other places. And they were already thinking like, well, my experience now as a student is going to impact whether I ultimately decide to return to the school or district. And so I would say, one of the biggest barriers is just are we treating our students of color? How are we treating Black students? How are they experiencing K-12? And can they envision, are those experiences helping them envision themselves being in the space of the leader of their classroom now? Right. So Dr. Chris Emden, good friend of our work and the organization, often shares that recruiting Black youth to become teachers is like recruiting someone to return to the scene of a crime committed against themselves, because that is the experience that they have. We've had students who talked about, like, hey, I'm considering becoming the teacher I wish I had and knew I needed.
I see.
So they wish they had it and they knew they needed it. So that's what's still inspiring them to become it. And we've had other students who said, like, I want to become a teacher, but I wouldn't want to be a colleague of my current teachers.
That's
I
telling.
wouldn't want to be under the supervision of my current principal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's telling. So it all, kind of encapsulated in how are our students experiencing today and whether they can envision themselves leading tomorrow.
Can you tell us about a specific program or strategy within CBED that was implemented, and you implemented it and it was effective? You saw some really good outcomes out of it.
Oh yeah, well, so I have two and they're connected. So one is our teaching academy. So this is again, when people were reaching out like, "Oh, send us a black teacher." We're
Right.
like, "No, we have a program to, we're not headhunters for black teachers.
Progress, process. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
so we have a course that we designed, but again, this was out of our high school students' experiences when I was a principal, where they said, "Hey, you know what?" Students were saying like, "Hey, I'm considering becoming returning back to the Shoemaker campus and becoming a teacher. Where do
Mhm.
I learn how to become a teacher?" And we're like,
Okay.
"Oh, well, yeah. Where do you go to
Go.
learn to become a teacher?" And so we started designing this course. So Teaching Academy um, is a career and technical ed CTE course. We in Philadelphia, it's actually also a dual enrollment course. And we're excited that we have students in schools around the country who have adopted this curriculum.
Mm.
And they partner with us. They have this curriculum. It's a 4-year model. Some of the schools use it as a 3-year model, but they are, basically teaching 101, but from
Okay.
a Black pedagogical framework and a Black historical lens,
Okay.
right? Where these high school youth are learning, oh, this is how teaching and learning has operated. Here's what, in Black communities.
Hmm.
Here's what, Black people have thought about and their relationship with building schools and
Right.
instructional frameworks, et cetera. Like, and so this is what this course is. But then students who take this course and then they say, hey, you know what? I want to do this and I'm going to college. Then they can be part of our a fellowship that we have. And this
Okay.
fellowship is an investment. So it's not just a scholarship, but it's an investment where they get support financially, professionally, academically. They have a network of others. And typically we have 25 fellows a year. And last year, 600 something applied. 600 something youth
Wow.
applied and said they were interested in becoming teachers. They're, want to be a part of our program. They want to have this support, academic support, professional support, financial support. And, and then once they get to their fifth year of teaching, they get a $20,000 retention stipend.
Nice.
So they get support while they're in college
Mm-hmm.
and once they get to their fifth year of teaching, so that kind of comprehensive model of support, coupled with the high school experience. So we want the early exposure, clinical experience, and then the supports. Because you can
How do you,
imagine most high schools, even if a student says, "Hey, I want to be a teacher,"
right?
they can't support their alumni in a formal way. They say, "All
Mm-hmm.
right, we'll see you in a few years when you graduate." There's probably some informal relationships with their
Mm-hmm.
former teacher, but there's few districts that have a formalized support system. It's kind of a handoff. All right, university, do what you will, and then we hope
Right.
they come back. Well, a lot of students don't come back, or they don't even finish, or they change their major, or they find
Mhm.
themselves as the only Black kid in their teacher prep program, or they face other barriers. We want to be in that chasm to
Yeah.
provide the support and walk hand in hand with that youth who's interested in leading classrooms in cities that we partner with.
How do you think 600 folks hear about CBD? What's the magic there?
Well, the magic is the power of community, right? And so, back in the day, the folks would say each one teach one, each one reach one. And I'm like, now with social media and things, each one reaches 1,000,
Yeah.
and so, people who are involved in our network and within our community, they share, and it's a long time ago, people used to tell me like, positive news doesn't get shared as much. Negative news gets shared X amount of times,
Hmm.
more than positive news. But we what we found is that positive news travels, and people who are within the community, people who we've served, people who we partner with, they all have networks, and sharing that with our youth and the power of social media, the power of us delivering on past promises,
Right.
just engineers a way to communicate with folks that we would not be able to do on our own. So I would have
Mhm.
to give credit to the community as well as our team who have been able to successfully deliver thus far on the
See,
work of rebuilding the Black teacher pipeline.
I would love to talk more about that program. AppleTree also has the AppleTree Early Learning Teacher Residency Program,
Hmm.
and it's targeted towards early childhood education, producing early childhood teachers for the field. We are in DC specifically for this area. I'd love to talk more about some advice for that and things like
Yeah.
that. But it's a great program. We aspire to hopefully grow some more early ed teachers into other schools than just AppleTree. And it's very diverse as well. I mean, that's even that's our target is providing more jobs and careers for people who are already in our area.
So important, and just being able to support people on the pathways, the career exploration
Hmm.
pathways, and having structures to invite people into the profession,
Right.
into AppleTree, but also support them along the way,
Yep.
right? And so that's the model that you all are using, and very similarly how we are.
Thank you for
Absolute
sharing
pleasure.
so much great information, your insight. Please tune in, listen to Sharif El-Mekki, and go to his website as well.
Our work can be found on www.thecenterblacked.org. That's blacked.org. And we're on all the social media platforms, Center Black Ed. They can also find our writings, not only from myself, but other educators from around the country on our blog page, Philly 7th Ward, PHILLYS, the number 7, THWARD. That's a shout out to W.B. Du Bois, who was in Philadelphia,
Mm.
when Philadelphia was divided up into wards, and the seventh ward in Philly was the blackest. So the website that I launched with a couple other educators, Philly Seventh Ward .org. It can also be found. Just some writing, some insights, and we welcome folks, including you, Natasha.
I've been on the
You
website.
know,
I've seen the blog
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. Please no,
Really
but
good.
also please, if you ever have something that you want to write about, we'd be honored and happy
Oh, okay. I'd
to
love to do
post it.
that.
So yeah,
Yep, I would. Okay, well, you heard it here. And I want to say thank you and thank you to all of our viewers as well.